Podcast. I'm your host, Brianford16, and my guest for today is Anthony Stokes, who's the writer for his Kickstarter comic Decay, which is a comic about. Let's see, I believe I took my notes here. Yes, it's about bringing. Where you can find. I'm so sorry, my notes are a little mixed up here. So it has a lot to do with. So it's pretty much a comic about tragedy and all that, and.
Yep.
It's there it is. It's a comic about love, despair, grief, and revenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
There we go. And I read this comic and I thought it was really amazing. I thought it was like it was just like I Zombie in a sense. Do you know that comic from Vertigo?
I don't actually. I saw the TV. I didn't see the TV show.
You know, it's funny. I was introduced to it through the TV show, but I had no idea that they made a comic of it. But then when I saw that on Vertigo, I was like, oh, and I read a little bit of it too. Really interesting comic.
Okay.
And if anyone's into zombie stuff or iZombie or anything like that, or zombie comics like Walking Dead even, or into the occult or voodoo magic, I mean, this is definitely the comic you want to read. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, at least.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really cool. So we have Anthony. We have Anthony Stokes. How's it going?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really excited. The Kickstarter launches 2 weeks from yesterday, as of this recording. So kind of gearing up for that. Anxious, excited. Everything that comes with hosting Kickstarter.
Yeah, I mean, save the date, people. 2 weeks, and I mean, I've read this comic, and I think it's really amazing. I read both issues 1 and 2, and now that we're talking about the comic, and we're promoting it, what can you tell us about Decay?
I can tell you lots. So it is a revenge thriller with a supernatural, like a hard twist. It's about grief and love and loss. It's basically about trying to stay alive for somebody else, and what happens when that goes wrong. And it's very atmospheric, very character driven, very, very bleak, misanthropic in certain regards. So, if that sounds good, then, it'll appeal to anybody who likes those sort of things.
Oh, I definitely love me a good revenge story, and like a good story that, that invokes so much emotion. And when I read it, it was like, to me, it started off as, it was sort of like a flashback, and it wasn't what I least expected. And that's one of the things I like about these comics. It's just, everything looks all normal. Everything looks all cool. But then all of a sudden, it's like, kind of like that. And you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because like the first part of the comic, actually, obviously, someone got shot. That's what we see. I mean, spoiler alert. But yeah. Toward the end, especially, that's when the story really begins. And it's just about two guys mind their own business. They want to basically sell this drink and want to promote their business, and then they get caught in the crossfire, and basically two of them get shot and they die, and the main character decides to bring one of them back from the living. And I thought that was pretty interesting. When I read issue number 2, we got to the part where, obviously, I forgot the character's name. I do know the main character's name is Jess, but
their brother's Decay.
Decay, yeah, there you go. So when Decay comes back to life, he has this. I think he has sort of like a talisman of sorts.
A necklace,
yeah.
Pendant.
A pendant. A pendant that just keeps him alive. And I thought it was really cool because like when he takes it off, like he just goes back to like being. Being dead, and
yeah, it
kind of reminded me of Inuyasha, the anime.
Yeah, I am familiar with Inuyasha. How so? Because I'm very familiar. I like Inuyasha a lot.
Yeah, like so in one of the characters, I think her name is Sango. She has a little brother named Kohaku, and he dies during
right.
Yeah, and then like he basically dies during an attack, I think, and he's brought back to life by Kikyo, I think. Kikyo, was it? Yes, Kikyo, the priestess, and she puts a Shikon jewel inside of him.
The shard, and
like the jewel shard, yeah, and it just keeps him alive. So it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's not too. That's a good point. I mean, having that plot device is definitely interesting, because it adds a weak point essentially. or a leverage point for the bad guys, a point of witness for the good guys. So it adds tension essentially and rules, because if you have an undead person that, can do anything without any consequences, then that there's no tension in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that in itself is like a plot device, I feel. And just with the character of Decay, he's like pretty much he's on a revenge spree after he comes back from the living.
Revenge tour.
Yeah, like a revenge tour. Yeah. And I'm like, dang.
Yeah.
And so now we're on to the story. Like, why the title Decay?
So it's Decay, and I made this joke before. It's better than rotten. Like the idea of a corpse, that decays. It's really about moral decay. Like the main character,
I like that.
Decay, he's becoming like a shadow of himself. He's giving into these dark impulses. So the decay is within himself, physically and metaphorically, essentially. It's kind of ominous,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like the fact that you even named him DK, like his initials DK, like that. I don't know that's like that's symbolic right there. I'm like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about that until you brought it up. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. DK.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like
it's a pun.
His body in itself is a story, and what's so interesting too is just that while he's on his revenge tour, he has like these. Not only is he like a Walking Dead man, like he also has like these supernatural abilities. That where he can, if he touches a dead body, he actually inherits their voice in a sense, which I thought was really cool.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's because the first one is pretty low premise, and I do enjoy low premise comic books and stuff like that, movies, because it adds a grittiness and a realness to it. And with issue 2, it's a lot more world building. You can kind of dip into like the weird stuff that makes it a comic book.
And yeah, also now that I think about it too, what I kind of got from that too was just that when I read the comic again, I noticed that both he and his sister kind of, well, especially DK, he wants to leave the city because he knows it's bad. And from what I gather, and his sister, Jess, she's a really interesting character because I feel like she's kind of like a morticianer.
She is a mortician, yeah.
But she kind of reminds me of if the Undertaker was a beautician.
Okay. All right, well, you gotta walk me through this one.
Well, because the character of the Undertaker, the wrestler. And all that.
I don't watch wrestling. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Well, I mean, basically his character is a mortician. And, he buries the dead or whatever. But she just beautify. It's kind of beautiful too in the sense that how that character beautifies the dead, and because it's sort of rooted from trauma of what happened to their mother, because their mother, she says something about their mother kind of like. When she died, she wasn't buried properly, I think it was. She wasn't.
They made her body. They did a bad job with the makeup.
Yeah, and then I think, that's kind of like where it kind of comes from. Like she makes a vow to like make everyone look their best on their last day. I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah, so you could call her a bit morbid, but in a positive way.
In a positive way, yeah.
But yeah, she lost her parents. So she has a strange relationship with death, and that's when she kind of gets into voodoo, because in America death is a bad thing. It's entirely bad.
It's not celebrated.
It's not celebrated, but if you go to Mexico or New Orleans,
I was gonna think that
cultures, Creole cultures, like it's like celebrated. It's like, okay, this is the next step.
Dia de los Muertos.
Well, I'm not gonna try, but essentially, like, yeah, it's a celebration. So it makes sense that she would, get into this to kind of help her get through her trauma. And there's also a moment where she doesn't bring that to her parents' graves because they're Christians. So it's also that she respects other people's religion. So you had to do, when you're paying per page and you have to do comic book pages divisible by 4, because they take a sheet of paper and then they fold it, and that's the 1, 2, 3, 4.
The panels,
You gotta basically, so you can't have 23, you gotta have 24, can't have 25, gotta have, so you gotta do really efficient storytelling. So a real mission statement for me was to get the characters as developed as possible, as as efficient as possible. So I didn't want anything ham-fisted. I mean, you don't even find out DK's name until issue 2, which was a big point of contention for some people. I don't know why. It wasn't a big deal to me. And so yeah, it was like subtlety was a huge part of issue 1. There's a huge point of emphasis.
I think that's what makes it so great though too, because it's like right in your face, but you don't really know it. It's like it's staring right at you. And now you brought that up, it kind of reminded me about how they made Watchmen 2019, and with the fact that when toward the end, when I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen it. It's been a while. It's been about 2
You remember
years.
the part where she eats the egg though, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that Dr. Manhattan, spoiler, that Dr. Manhattan uses, and then like she just like cracks it, and then she notices it's like uncracked, and then she eats the egg, and then she tries to walk on water, but then we don't really know for a fact if she inherited his powers. But then I think the director said something to the degree like, look at the Watchmen poster of Angela Abar, and you notice that in the poster she's glowing blue, like Dr. Manhattan.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the subtlety right there, where in the sense that she did in fact inherit his powers, in a sense. Yeah.
Nah, subtlety is super important because there's not a lot, and people are trained not to. I was watching this. I saw a tweet. I don't remember who said it, but they were like, it was actually like a professional writer. You've seen the Batman, I'm assuming.
I mean, funny enough, I haven't seen it yet though, but I would love to see it.
Well, basically, like Gordon and Batman are friends, right?
Yeah,
they're colleagues. They have a mutual respect for each other. And they said, when did Batman and Gordon form such friendships? Like, they didn't even show that. And it's just like, you need that shown to you. Like, you can't get that through the content. Like, it's stuff like that is incredibly frustrating. It's like, and this is a person who's like not a fan, like a mild fan. This is a writer. This is a professional writer. Just, I don't know. It's like a dumbing down of audiences, which is really frustrating. Especially when it's the people that should be in charge of making the audience smarter. Like we don't need to see all this stuff.
Like we don't necessarily need a play-by-play.
Implied.
It's like we need a play-by-play and all that, right?
Yeah, they're just friends. Like,
yeah,
so weird. like and stuff like that. So being subtle, and a lot of people don't like that. But I'm like, it's cool. Like this might not be, for you. You know what I'm saying? Like
exactly.
Totally fine. But I'm not gonna do like I was watching. I do a lot of name drops. I was watching Moon Knight.
I love Moon Knight, man. Have you seen episode 4?
I have not seen episode. I haven't even seen episode 3. I was. The Disney Plus shows have a real lack of visual storytelling. It's a lot of tell not showing, and I just can't get into it. And like it's like I think that has been truly detrimental to like audiences and what they expect is the way that TV and movies just kind of spoofing them. When you watch things like Game of Thrones or Attack on Titan, these things make the audience smarter. Like. They make you think and process information and notice little details, and then when you get to certain things, it's like, no, we're gonna point the thing out, we're gonna reference the thing again, we're gonna have one character explain the thing to the other character, and it's really a shame that's where we're at. But this is hopefully we can correct some of that. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and that's one of you kind of touched on Attack on Titan. I mean, usually a lot of anime isn't Attack on Titan anime too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because like with My Hero Academia, like a lot of times there's a lot of back and forth of, like you said, visual storytelling, and it just keeps the fans in check too. Well, not in check though, but it kind of keeps the fans updated as to what's going on, And even like the animes that last like only like 13 episodes are really good because it's like they have that storytelling, they have these characters that bond, and like one of my favorites being Outlaw Star, and and Cowboy Bebop,
Yep.
Samurai Champloo was another favorite of mine,
I
and
like those a lot.
those are gonna those are actually timeless because
Mm-hmm.
it's like it tells a common story about two friends getting together, people who seemingly don't have anything in common though, but then when they get together they realize that, oh, I actually have something in common with this person. And I feel like that's one of the amazing things about anime, and even with Star Wars too. I mean, I talk a lot about Star Wars, but I feel it's the same deal.
Well, you feel okay? Can you reiterate? Like you feel like what's the same deal in regards
Well,
to
like
Star
people,
Wars?
people coming together who seemingly are different, but then
Oh,
they have something in common. Like,
yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
that's basic storytelling. You know, like that's that's like storytelling 101. Is you bring a bunch of different characters together and then they bounce off each other and they develop and yeah, no, 100%. I see what you mean. And I
right.
would love to tell a story like that, like an adventure story. One is I'm working on one right now, and I definitely think those are great. Those kind of
I love
teen
those
things start off
stories.
lumpy,
Like Final Fantasy is the same way.
I mean, it's a common storytelling technique, and for good reason because it works.
It's like classic. It's like the oldest
Mm-hmm.
trick in the book.
Yeah, absolutely, for good reason.
So, going back to Decay, like, how did you
Mm-hmm.
come about creating Decay? What was the inspiration behind it?
It was a lot of trying to process some trauma and some grief, um, and it was I just wanted something that was different, that was very human. Like I think we're getting away from the human element of these stories, like these big. I want to reference the MCU again. Like I said, I like the name drop. So we look at like Iron Man is about a man trying to redeem himself. You know, we look at
Mm-hmm.
Thor, somebody like gaining their humility, and then you get to
Mm-hmm.
like the Eternals and like who the hell knows like what's the human element? Like I know they're not literally human, but neither is Thor, but they're still like
Yeah.
human stories. Like we're losing so much track of like whatever your high premise thing, whatever it still needs to be about a human being trying to do something, accomplish something. So I
Like
wanted
the
something
human
low
element.
premise. What'd you say?
Like the human element.
Yeah, the human element, exactly. Like something that I can look at and be like, I'm gonna come back to this story because of this. You know, Black Panther has it. That's why one of those things. Like, so it was very important to try to capture that. And there's nothing more human than death. You know, like it's unfortunate, and yeah. So that was something that was a real point of emphasis. And like I said, having a family member, writing about a family member that you care deeply about, but you can't protect them. Like it's a scary thought when you're a kid and you grow up and you realize like your parents like can't save you from everything. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you can love somebody with all your heart, but like you could try to protect them, but they're going to live their own life, and you there's circumstances where you can't do anything, and that's really what it's about.
I feel like that's why shows like The Walking, or comics even like The Walking Dead by Robert Kirkman are so popular, because they do have that human element
Mm-hmm.
about people coming and going,
Mm-hmm.
and you grow so attached to these characters, but then when the moment, like when they die, and they die in the least expect when you least expect them to. I mean, everyone on Walking Dead pretty much has an expiration date. I mean, it's almost a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's
Makes
just
sense.
life in general too, though.
That
But
is life.
in Walking Dead especially, it's like, damn, and I started following the show, I mean, a couple years ago, and like I grew to like the characters. My favorite character of all was Glenn, actually, funny enough. He was one of my favorite characters. I mean, just because he was a lovable dork, and someone who you can kind of relate to. At least I felt I could relate
I'm
to
gonna
him.
Google Glenn real
And of
quick.
course, Maggie was hot. Well,
Oh,
his,
yeah,
his
yeah,
girlfriend.
yeah. No, I forgot the dude's name.
Stephen Yeun. He plays
Stephen Young,
Invincible.
amazing guy, amazing
Yeah,
actor. Yeah,
really
he's
amazing actor.
fantastic. No, he's amazing.
And just he was just someone who you can relate to, and he
Hmm.
wasn't like all brawn or whatever. He was just like all of us in a sense. But then when I saw him die, it was just like, dude, it was like seeing like a relative get when Negan killed him. And ironically,
Yeah,
Negan became one of my favorite villains and my favorite anti-heroes. But
yeah.
just seeing that happen, it really hurt. I was like, oh man.
That's interesting. Yeah, because people, that kind of goes back to one of the complaints that happened. One of the complaints I got with Decay, and it's not perfect. I'm not somebody who pretends. I don't have the resources to tell a perfect story, like, but they were like, oh, you should get to know the characters more so you feel for them when they die. And it's like, people kind of miss the point is that you're not supposed to feel them because you know them so well. Like, how you know Glenn, like, maybe you're supposed to feel empathy because it's a human being going through a bad situation. And it's also about like the feeling of dread leading up to catching up to the cold open from the first page, So I think I think also maybe Game of Thrones has like changed the perception of that, like where like, okay, when a character dies, it has to be like a big emotional moment, but it's not. It's actually a pretty cold, almost clinical, almost sterile moment, when DK dies, and that's on purpose, So I think, yeah, like I'm just trying to condition people to appreciate just the storytelling on its own merit,
Yeah, absolutely. And you just want to make sure too that, again, going back to the human element, I feel that's why, even shows like Superman and Lois are doing so well right now, because what's amazing about Superman and Lois is that there is that human element, with Superman. Superman has always strove to be human in a sense, or relate to the human race, even though he himself is not human.
Yeah.
He struggled with loss of his parents. Especially his mother, was a really, crushing one in this arc anyway for Superman and Lois. Like, then seeing his father pass away, it was just...
And I think that's something that the Zack Snyder's movie got like incredibly wrong, is like they changed it from like a heart attack, which is something that like is human, like everybody can relate to that, and they make it like a tornado. Where, where he could have stopped it. He could have said, it was so weird. It was like the worst characterization for a character like that I've ever seen. And yeah, that takes it out of a human. That takes it from a human problem, which makes us relate to Superman, to like a Superman problem. It's like, yeah, I can't relate to that. I couldn't watch my dad get clawed by her.
No, you would want to do everything you can to save your relative.
And he's so damn fast, he could have grabbed him without anybody like noticing him. But like, yeah, it makes it less relatable, and it takes it away. Now he's an alien, Yeah. Like before he's Clark Kent, now he's an alien,
Yeah. And and also too, like, dealing with that loss, but then also, going back to Superman and Lois, dealing with like raising two kids, because he has two sons in the show. One is like,
that's cool.
Yeah, one's like, pretty confident and pretty, brash, but then there's the other one who's kind of introverted, but then is kind of anxious. But then they kind of rub off on each other too, in a sense, where the two brothers start to bond more, and he starts becoming a little more confident, and then even the cocky brother starts becoming a little more wise and mature. Though he kind of, in the recent arc, he kind of got caught with drugs, and Superman and Lois were not too happy. Clark was just, yeah.
Okay.
But it's interesting too, because the introverted son has powers, and he's starting to inherit Superman's abilities.
Okay. Nah. Yeah. I think. Yeah. Yeah. Getting busted for drugs is definitely like. I guess they're trying to make it like grounded in reality, but good job. But I definitely think it's good when shows do that. You can overcorrect. Like I remember, I was watching Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Another good one.
Well, so you say. He goes to like the crux of the first episode was like, can he get a loan from the bank?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I'm like, one anybody who understands like how the military works, like he is like a high-ranking officer in the Air Force, they would happily give him that loan. And then he's an Avenger, and then he knows a bunch of rich people, and it's like, all right, you guys have now. I think my problem with the MCU is they want to have their cake and eat it too, where like people will reference the snap, and then the next moment they're like, they won't acknowledge some wild shit that just happened. Like,
yeah, the fact that he saved the world, like he was a part of the team that saved the world,
Well, it's like, okay, if you would acknowledge that Thanos happened, and then Moon Knight, it's like, oh, I saw a giant monster. Why would you be like, nah, come on, man. What are you talking about? I forgot. What are you talking about, Steven? What? You're crazy. It's like you saw a giant purple guy snap away half the universe, So I definitely think there's a balance and absolutely. But yeah, like making the characters human was a huge point of emphasis, and also death is a unifier. So multiple cultures can appreciate multiple cultures are represented here with it being from it being set in New Orleans. So New Orleans is a melting pot. You know, it's I say it's almost got a comic book lore in of itself. You know, because you got French culture, you got
Oh yeah, you have a mixture of cultures in New
Southern
Orleans.
American, Southern American culture. You know, Mexican culture. You know, Creole culture. You know, Africa. Yeah, it's all kinds of it's so crazy. You know, like how many different there are. So that offered a lot of opportunities there as well.
And especially, the food, man. I heard the food is good.
How much this campaign hits? I'm going this summer.
Mardi Gras and all that, and
yeah, get some gumbo, get some what do they call them? I can't remember. Like the little bakery beignets. Yeah, get some beignets.
What are those? Like, it's like a bread or something, or like?
Did you ever see Princess and the Frog?
I haven't seen Princess and the Frog actually.
It's like almost like a kind of like a donut, like a baked donut they dusted with flour, but it was like kind of flaky. It's hard to describe, but they look amazing.
I mean, maybe I should plan a trip there myself.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, how did you come up with forming the creative team behind Decay? Like the artists and like all that.
Essentially, I found the artist on Reddit because I was looking around, and I did a couple 1-page, 2-page stories, and then I found him, and I said, hey, he wants to work. And he said, yeah, and he was pretty sure he's just doing exterior work, which is the covers, and then I said, let's do some interior work, and he's like, yeah. So, and then my letter I found on Facebook, he's kind of like a mentor of mine, SK. And it's that was it. I mean, he does good work, you know. Like it's not much of a story there, you know. He just does his job, and we work well together.
I mean, I do like the drawings though too. I mean, like the art and everything's really cool. And like when I saw like especially the city and all that, I was like, that's got to be New Orleans because it looked
oh absolutely
like the lights and everything, and
the
it looks really cool.
Graves
and the graves and the voodoo stuff.
Yeah, that cover is crazy, man. He took that. I can't take any credit for that.
Wow.
Like he does an amazing job. I'm gonna be working with him for quite a long time.
I mean, hey, some like a lot of times there's some comic book duos that are just like, that do like that just there's a lot of chemistry between the writer and the artist. Kind of like what's his name? He wrote like Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, who wrote Batman. Just okay, it clicks, Yeah,
absolutely.
Just for that example, and then like I think another one for me was Pat Gleason, and they wrote the Batman and Robin series. I mean, I'm a huge DC junkie, much more than I'm a Marvel guy too, though, but definitely a huge DC junkie.
I think that's a lot of cases. Like it's a lot of people I noticed that are like DC fans. But yeah, no, I'm great. And then like when comic book creators, like I don't know if you make comic books, so respectfully, like their opinions mean a crazy amount.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, and then but also like diehard comic fans. I mean, because I wanted to make it so that if you like storytelling, you can pick this up and read and enjoy it. Like I know a lot of people start off too big with their thing, and then it's like, oh, like on the planet Xandar, in the year 5,400, there's a king, and then the king, and it's like this massive backstory. And it's just like, again, where's the human element? Why do I care? And like, yeah, like why should I care? And then so I was like, I want to do something that was like simple, like anybody. My mom read it, she liked it. My mom is not a comic book fan, so but I also do appreciate when people that are very into comic books, they say they like it, they like the art and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, and actually that's the readers you really want to win over too. Even like, you got the hardcore comic book fans, but sometimes I feel like the hardcore comic book fans are a little judgmental. God bless them. And there was a time actually too where I was on Twitter one time, and they even asked, who are your favorite artists, your top 5 or whatever. And I mentioned my top 5, being Greg Capullo being number 1 of them, Frank Quitely. I think I even said, I said John Romita, and then the aforementioned Patrick Gleason, and all those other ones. And Alex Ross is another favorite of mine. But then this dude came, this random dude, came and said that
Didn't ask him for his opinion.
He was like, you don't read comic books a whole lot, do you? And I didn't respond. I'm like, okay, whatever. But then the person who asked that question, she was like, hey, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And the funny thing was that Patrick Gleason actually liked her response, and then like the guy just deleted his, I think he deleted his comment, and then also I think his account was like gone or something too.
Yeah, I have a lot of people don't like the art, and I
thought the art was good.
I think the art is fantastic. I mean, is it perfect? No, and we're gonna say that. Like, could it be cleaned up? Like, if I had infinite time, would I have cleaned up some of the pages? Absolutely, but like, yeah, like it was a person who said that, yeah, like the art's like 75% of the way there, and he said, yeah, like a publisher wouldn't pick this up in its current state. I'm like, I'm getting hit up by some publishers. I don't, and that's why, I think that's a real comic book fan. But like, I don't care about. I think people go to comic books for different things, and I think comic are like the most subjective media, because like what you value is what you mention first.
Exactly.
Like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar reviewed a comic book and he didn't mention the art, and a lot of people have problems with that. But I'm like, all right, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a writer. Like he that's what he's going to appeal to. Like me, I'm a writer. Like I need good dialogue. If your comic book has bad dialogue, I can't read it. Does that make it a bad comic book? No, not at all. That's just a me thing. I wouldn't say to somebody that had great art, a good story with really bad dialogue, like, oh, I don't think anybody's going to get invested in this.
Yeah, and again, not to diss, hardcore fans, I mean, like, I'm a fan, but it's like, you talk as if like you yourself are, this is to the, some of these fans, like you talk as if you're the artist or some other writer, but it's like, are you an artist? Are you a writer? If not, then like at that point, it's like what my sister always says, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to the facts.
Well, yeah, just like admit it's from a subjective point of view. Don't make assumptions for other players.
Exactly. I mean, just as a disclaimer, I mean, you can criticize whatever. I mean, hey, this is the world of creativity, though. But just understand too that, if you're not really any of these things, and it's just an opinion.
It's just an opinion.
That's it.
And it's just like you just gotta. I think it's a bit arrogant to project your opinion to other people. And again, I need good dialogue, but there are plenty of good comic books that don't like. Comic books are not a medium about dialogue. Like that's plays, that's movies, that's television. It's
an interplay between word and images, or words and images.
Yeah, it's not the focus. And I'll read a comic book with weak art if it has great dialogue. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just subjective, and I think it's more subjective than movies or television and such like that. Because I've read a comic book. I'm not going to name the comic book, but that people are like, oh my god, it's so good, and I read it, and it is so much damn text, man. It's just the first page is just bubble. I'm just like, I can't read this. Like, I literally cannot read this, because I can't do it, but that people like it, and it had good art. It had a good premise. I can't sit here and say like, oh, a publisher picked this up. I can't believe this. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I just want people to, it's a each his own. And you know what I'm saying? We can talk about Man of Steel objectively. Like Zack Snyder's not here in the call with us. When you're talking to somebody that is making something, you got to keep in mind that like, one, they have limited resources. Two, like this is something that they really care about. You know what I'm saying? So I just want people to keep that in mind. And like I said, I think the art is good. And it's like, yeah, are the character models perfect? Absolutely not. But like the stuff that matters, like the moments, the big moments, the splash pages,
definitely the splash pages,
the atmosphere, the tone. You know what I'm saying? Like I think he nailed it. And I gotta defend my artist. Like I think he did a fantastic. Not most people like it. I'm talking about like 1% of people, by the way. But like,
yeah, I think there's always gonna be your critics. It's like those football fans who say like, well, I should have done this, but then never played a game of football in their life, professionally. And it's just like, come on, would you really have done that if you were in that very moment, it's like, come on.
Yeah, people, yeah, and the critics are gonna happen. The critics actually enjoy it quite a bit, but like I said, I think it's really good. I'm kind of past the point of like arguing. If you don't think it's good, because I think good storytelling is apparent. Like I think it's like we all know what a good story is. And I feel like I've done that. If that doesn't appeal to you, then man, like there's all kinds of things available for you that that you can enjoy. Like I heard a creator say that, like, hey, maybe my stuff isn't for you, and that was like so freeing to hear. And I was like, yeah, I can tell somebody that, like, man, like this might not be for you. Yeah, it was like such a great feeling. Like, all right, thanks for reading, man. Like,
like it's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, speaking of like writers and all that, who'd you say is your favorite comic book writer?
So I'm not a crazy big comic book guy. My favorite writer, I'm gonna pivot and I'm gonna try to circle back when I think of a better answer. My favorite writer would probably be Aaron Sorkin.
I think I've heard of him.
He did Social Network. He did Molly's Game. He's like okay, I know Quentin Tarantino.
I know Quentin Tarantino, yeah.
Okay, let's say Quentin Tarantino.
It could be from any genre, like comics or novels or,
Quentin Tarantino, Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen's hilarious.
Yeah, so he's great. Like their style of dialogue is very natural. It's very much like everybody feels real. And that was something that I really appreciated. But then Quentin Tarantino is like everybody's like a cartoon character. So I like to study. I studied a wide spectrum of how to write dialogue, and I feel like Decay definitely has that naturalistic dialogue where I put a heavy emphasis on that, and I don't think a lot of people do that in comics because we got the art and all this other stuff, and it's almost detrimental to have too much. You can't have too much dialogue. You can't, like it'll make it look like terrible. But yeah, like I like Brian O'Malley who wrote Scott Pilgrim. That's one of my favorite things.
Scott Pilgrim, yeah.
If I'm allowed to say a manga writer, Hajime Isayama, who wrote Attack on Titan, is one of my favorites. The Noah Hawley, who writes Fargo, one of my favorites as well. So I just named a bunch of people.
That's cool. And like, do you also like do you have like any favorite artists, or if you don't have any favorite artists, do you have like any favorite cinematographer or like directors or
favorite director? Man, like I really like the dude who did Midsummer. I'm blanking on his name. Ari Aster, I think, is a great director. He did Midsummer. He did Hereditary. I really enjoyed David Fincher, Edgar Wright. So I'm really a movie guy. I'm a screenwriter, but I switched to comic books.
Hey, movies, are still, movies are cool. They're the same as comic books in a way. I mean, just different in sequential art and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're the biggest medium in the world, but like by the same token, they're super competitive, and I can make a better comic book than I can a movie at this point. So I decided to make a comic book because I said storytelling to me is universal. It's like a universal language. So I was like, okay, I can take it, and I updated a few things. I cut out a lot of dialogue, but I felt like ultimately, like, yeah, I think it came out pretty well for a debut.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And and you mentioned movies and all that though, and in the comics world, like especially in the Star Wars comics, they had like the War of the Bounty Hunters, which I felt was like a Star Wars movie, and actually, again, I talk a lot about Star Wars. There was also, I feel like the War of the Bounty Hunters was kind of based loosely on Shadows of the Empire, which was arguably, I think it was planned to be a Star Wars movie, and I think they were going to even get some of the original cast back somehow, but then instead they made it into a multimedia project. So a comic book came out, a video game, a novel, and it was just basically it took place between the events of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and it showed how Luke Skywalker dealt with having his hand cut off by Darth Vader and finding out that Vader was his father,
Mm-hmm.
And and then they had this new villain by the name of Prince Shizor, and he was just like a real crazy interesting villain. And same with like the I don't know if you know this though, but then recently Disney bought Star Wars. Actually a couple years ago they did.
Oh yeah, they've had it
And
for years.
they changed the canon, so they have this War of
Oh
the
yeah, they
Bounty
got rid of the
Hunters,
EU.
which is just like Empire Strikes Back, but this time, the person who's taking the role of Shizor basically is Han Solo's ex-girlfriend Kira, played by Emilia Clarke. But she's kind of like sort of on the side of good, but then not really. She's still
Right.
sort of a crime lord. I mean, just really crazy. And,
Mm-hmm.
I thought in that sense, that's where I kind of feel like movies and comics are kind of similar, because it's like you can even make a movie out of that whole arc.
I mean, yeah, it's in today's like medium means less and less these days. Like it used to be that a movie was a movie, comic book was a comic book, a TV show was a TV show.
Yeah.
Now with the Disney Plus and the MCU and Netflix have changed it to where you're watching movies at home. You're watching more movies are coming out at home than in, which is probably always the case. Sure. But like more big movies, a lot of big movies are coming out at home. Disney Plus has made like these Disney Plus shows, which I don't care for. They're kind of like a blend. They're like this wishy-washy, like kind of a movie production value, but not really. And then also they don't have the length of a TV show to really build up stories, I feel. But that's right down the line. You have the MCU, which combines like comic books, movies, TVs. So the medium means less and less. And you're going to see more artists jumping back and forth between mediums, because one, it's going to be easy transition, because if you can tell a story, you can tell it on any medium. And two,
You can diversify.
The door is already open. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Audiences are already conditioned to consume comic books if they're watching movies, comic book stories and stuff like that. The floodgates are open essentially. So it's a great time to be a creator right now.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, like you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that years ago, So it's definitely a good time. There's pros and cons of entertainment today, but the accessibility and the lack of like, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, like that is good.
So, I mean, in terms of being a creator, like, how was the process of creating Decay? Like, did you, like, the writing and all that? Like, you talk a whole lot about dialogue. What went into that? And, like, what else went into, like, doing the art and all that?
The biggest change was I had to cut out a lot of dialogue.
Oh, wow.
For readability. Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I love dialogue, but I love making a good product more. You know what I'm saying? Like, in my this has not scratched the itch of like me having dialogue on a TV on a big screen, but like, it isn't easy, to not be able to do the thing that you love, but you have to sacrifice for the better of the story.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be self-indulgent, especially on your first thing ever. You know, like you can't. It's not about you. It's about the characters. It's about the story. So I had to trim down on a lot of dialogue and just trust that, hey, people will kind of, like we said with Batman and Gordon, kind of just infer some of these things. And if it goes too fast, like, hey, go read a DC comic where they can make as many pages as they want and all this other stuff,
about the relationship.
There are limitations, especially like on the lowest rung of making something, and I don't think people take that into account, that like I have a poster. I'll send you the poster. There's a you want to look it up actually? Hold on. I'll send it to you real quick. I'll tag you in it real quick if you don't mind.
Oh, not at all.
So there's like this poster, and I'm gonna talk while I do it. And I'm not good at like editing, like visual graphic design or anything like that. Like I have somebody who does it for free, right? So I don't feel good like nitpicking and being like, oh, can you do this, do that, do this? When it's like in reality, like this person is doing me a huge favor, right? So I'm like, hey, which one of these do you guys like more? The left or the right? And then this one guy was like, "Oh, if you could take if you could take the logo and make it smaller and then tilt it 30 degrees and then put it over here," and it's like, bro, I didn't ask for that. like these people think we have unlimited time to do these things. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's just not the case. It's actually the opposite. And especially for somebody like me who's doing everything by myself, essentially, except the art and the lettering, which are huge, you know, like those are huge things, but I don't have the time as much, you know. I just tagged you in it. So you can see the post, see what I was talking about. But yeah, if I had more time, yeah, I could probably if I could pay him and be like, "Hey man, can you edit it and do all this, that. But I was just like, I don't have time for that. You know, we got to move on to other stuff.
Right.
Which is what happens on like movie sets and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, we got to get as close as we can get and to be efficient, but then we got to move on. And I think people just don't take into account that, like, man, this takes a lot of time, you know? Like,
yeah, I mean, because like even like with creativity and all that, or just creating stuff, it's like it's energy, it's time, and
yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe if you want to see a director's cut, sure, though, but then with a final cut, sometimes you can't add everything. It's like, you know, in a movie, you have your deleted scenes, but you're not going to add all the deleted scenes in a film, you know?
You have to make compromises on anything you do.
And it's interesting you brought that up, too, because I remember, I speak to a lot of friends about this, too. Like, the fascinating thing about how Street Fighter, the movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme, was made. I mean, there's a lot of articles on it though, but basically what happened was just that the video game company Capcom that basically owns Street Fighter, they wanted the movie to be made by Christmas, and the director basically, I think his name was D'Souza or something like that, if I'm not really mistaken. He made like the Hardy Boys and all that.
Oh, really?
The TV show, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it was the Hardy Boys or because it's based on the book, but
yeah,
he was behind all that, like Nancy Drew, I think, and
okay,
yeah, and he was like, actually his back was against the wall, and like he had to like hurry things up, and then Jean-Claude Van Damme, God bless him, was kind of being a bit of a diva at times, on set, and I think he even did like drugs on set too.
Yeah,
and it was just like a complete clusterfuck, and there was like that's why that's why so many fans, I mean, many people actually, funny enough, many people like the film because it's so bad that it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just a total disaster because it was nothing like the Street Fighter game. I mean, there were several references, and the only highlight of that film was Raul Julia, the guy who played Bison, or he actually played Gomez from the Addams Family before he passed away, and that was his last film. And he did it for his kids because they were fans of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But the point of all that is just that you mentioned like how there's so many time constraints in making things, especially like when it's comics and movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a lot of time constraints, and they didn't have the technology to actually put all that in. So that's why that was one of the reasons why the film didn't do as good, along with the fact that the characters that were played based on the video game characters were barely had any semblance to the characters in the game. And it was just that, wow. But it's a miracle that, because of all that even came to theaters and all that, because like, sometimes films that go up behind schedule don't make it at all.
Yeah. But, pull the plug on them.
Yeah. Went off on a little tangent there though, but what you said kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And it's just, a lot of times, there's so many time constraints, you can't put everything in, and sometimes there's other stuff too that goes in, like, maybe this will work, but then it's like, oh wait a minute, this doesn't work, or
art is super hard. Like art is incredibly hard. So just keep that in mind,
So we're going into so the Kickstarter is going to be in about 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm. May 3rd. So
wow, it's like the day before Star Wars Day.
Oh god. I did not think about that. But it will be all right.
Well, so what do you plan on putting into the Kickstarter?
I got a variant cover which I just showed you. And then so 2 variant covers, one from Lane Lloyd, who is super talented, another one from Portless, who is absolutely fantastic. It's like a kind of like a realistic, it's like a really cool dichotomy because Lane's style is like kind of like silly and like whimsical, but kind of like kind of ominous, almost like a Tim Burton esque. And then Portless is like super like realistic, and really like atmospheric. So I got 2 variant covers. I have a mixtape full of my friends who made music composed inspired by Decay, and then I'm gonna have a necklace. The necklace in Decay issue 2. That's gonna be available as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and then some various other stuff. Issues 1 and 2, like physical copies. Definitely, I the variant covers I think are fantastic. So I think people are going to want to grab some of those.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I'm looking forward to the Decay, and like I'm actually looking forward to issue number 3 too, and see what happens there. I mean, this guy is like hell bent right now.
Yeah.
Kind of like, he is basically the Walking Dead. I mean, I don't know if I would call him that, but
Yeah, it's like a zombie tip. I know people are tired of zombies, but zombie is a subgenre. Like as a main genre, yeah, it's a little played out, but it's a subgenre. Like you can do a heist, you can do a romance, a coming of age. Like you can do anything with a zombie story.
Oh yeah, I mean, zombie stories are very versatile. Is that the word for it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and like yeah, and it kind of reminds me of Die Hard a little bit too, in a sense.
Die Hard. In what way?
Well, I mean that he's just on he's on a mission, like I kind of got those vibes from it, and not like necessarily yippee-ki-yay, but it's just there was a little bit of that vibe in the second issue, especially when he went after was it Dre? I think it was
Trey,
yeah, and it was just like damn, and. And then he's just resourceful. Then when then he wakes up in the morgue again. It's just like
yeah. Nah, it's definitely gonna be cool, and there's definitely people are gonna like where the story is going. I think it gets better issue by issue, and the technique's gonna get better, of course. And yeah, everything. I think it's all people say uphill, which means bad, but it's all downhill from here. So it's all it's all gonna get better.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, we're kind of on the close right now. So, do you have any final thoughts? And also, what do you hope people will get out of Decay?
I hope that they will just enjoy the story, enjoy the twist and get caught off guard and just get wrapped into the characters in the story. That's
really cool, man. Well, that's gonna do it for the Earth 16 Comics Wire podcast. Where can we find you on social media? At Stokes the Writer. For my Twitter, Instagram is instagram.com/Decay Comic. I have a website, decaycomic.com, where you can get some comic books. And so that's all the big ones. And I'm also on Kickstarter, which if you could put the link in the tweet below when you tweet out the episode, that'd be a huge help. That'd be awesome. I'll make sure I post that too on the description and all that good stuff. So that way everyone knows where to find it. I'm trying to get to 200 followers pre-launch, so it'll be up. The episode will be up for a while. So, that'd be a huge help for anybody that wants to just help out with the campaign, help us keep it going. You hear that, constant listeners? Make sure you follow Anthony on Kickstarter and Twitter, so that way we can get this ball rolling. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for being on the Earth 16 Comics Wire podcast. Yep. So be on the lookout for Decay. I'm definitely gonna post it so that way everyone knows. So, as I always say, constant listeners, stay ever so awesome. This is Brian of Earth 16 and Anthony Stokes signing out.